Stories like the legend of Mel's Hole sound simple at first glance. A lonely patch of land in rural Washington, a circular pit lined with stone, neighbors tossing in junk because the thing never seems to fill. From there, the details spiral outward. A new landowner notices the absence of echo when he shouts into the darkness. His dog refuses to go near the edge. Birds circle but never cross directly above. It feels like the beginning of a horror movie, yet it is just a voice on a late-night radio show describing a place none of us will ever visit. As the caller talks, the story escalates. He is a fisherman, so instead of shrugging and moving on with his life, he brings out fishing line. 5,000 feet goes in. No bottom. 10,000 feet. Still nothing. Spool after spool disappears into the earth until he claims to have lowered 16 miles of line, weighted and marked, without any sign of resistance. Radios near the pit pick up old songs and baseball games from decades ago. A neighbor tosses his dead dog into the hole, and the next day, the caller insists he sees the same dog running in the woods, wearing the same collar but refusing all contact. The pit is no longer just deep, it is a rip in time. Then the human authorities arrive. The caller tells the host he returned from a trip to find his land surrounded by heavy machinery and men in uniforms. A man in plain clothes comes down the road and tells him there has been a plane crash, that the area is sealed. The landowner protests it. It is his property. The man quietly suggests that if the owner pushes, investigators might find a drug lab or something equally ruinous on the property. There are veiled threats, hints of classified work, and finally an offer: cash, relocation overseas, and a promise never to return. The legend gains soldiers in suits to stand beside the supernatural hole. Like many such tales, this one refuses to die. Years later, the man supposedly calls again from another country, describing lost time on a bus, missing teeth, shadowy government figures, and finally another hole found on tribal land in Nevada. This one is ringed with metal instead of stone, humming with unnatural properties. A strange creature, like a fetal seal with human eyes, rises partway out of the opening, stares at the gathered people, and somehow cures illnesses before sliding back into the dark. Recordings are made, photographs are promised, an interview is scheduled, and then the caller vanishes from the airwaves. The story conveniently ends just before any real verification can begin. If you step back from the atmosphere and simply chart the beats, a pattern appears. The story starts grounded: a piece of land, a hole, junk thrown in, a man with fishing line. With each retelling, the contradictions with ordinary physics and logistics grow. The rope length becomes almost comically large. Radios defy time, dogs cheat death, and finally a healing creature appears like a deus ex machina when the tale seems to run out of ways to surprise. The institutions that could contradict the myth, the military, the press, local authorities, are cast as either complicit or powerless. It is engineered so that belief costs you nothing socially, but skepticism makes you feel like a killjoy. The deeper problem is not this one story. The deeper problem is what happens to you when you start treating this style of narrative as a reasonable template for reality. Once you accept pits that ignore gravity, animals that return from death without scarring, and governments that can seize land without any paper trail, yet somehow still leave tractor tracks for paranormal investigators, your internal standards quietly slip. The next time someone tells you about a suppressed cure, a secret base under your city, or a miracle device hidden from the public, your brain has a ready-made shelf to store it on. You no longer ask, does this match the world I live in? You ask, is this as exciting as that other story I heard? Picture yourself in a small group of friends, maybe in a living room late at night. One person starts describing a hidden government project or a cosmic portal in the desert. Everyone leans in, jokes fly, someone pulls up grainy photos on their phone. You feel the familiar tug. If you ask for sources, dates, and names, you risk puncturing mood. You do not want to be the stiff, the skeptic, the one who refuses to just have fun. So you nod, or toss in a half-hearted, wow, that's crazy, even while a quieter part of you is counting the impossibilities. In that moment, the social cost of doubt wins over the private duty to think. Now place that same dynamic inside your phone. The modern feed is a perfectly tuned late-night radio show with infinite callers and no closing hour. Clips of real scientific missions sit next to breathless monologues about secret chambers and interdimensional creatures. The system notices which thumbnails make you pause and offers more of the same. It does not care whether the hole exists, it cares that you stare at it. You, half awake in bed, thumb flicking upward, are easy prey for any narrative that promises mystery without math. Imagine another evening. The room is dark except for the blue glare of your screen. You tell yourself you are only going to watch 1 or 2 clips before sleeping, but the algorithm has other plans. A video about a genuine astronomical discovery leads into a conspiracy about erased craters, then to a tale of underground labs, then to a story nearly identical to Mel's hole but relocated to some new region. By the time you finally drop the phone on the pillow, your mind is lit not by stars or facts, but by half a dozen unresolved plots created by strangers who will never be accountable to you. There is a quieter damage here. When your mental map fills with untested stories, your nervous system loses its baseline. Every unusual sound can become something sinister. Every government action becomes a cover story. Every medical setback starts to look like deliberate suppression of a simple fix. The world ceases to be difficult and becomes rigged. That belief does not make you safer. It just makes you tired, suspicious, and easy to manipulate. There is a more grounded way to live, and it begins with a habit so boring that it almost feels heroic to practice. Insist that stories which claim to describe the real world must first pass through gravity and paperwork. Gravity means physics, scale, and time. Paperwork means documents, records, and multiple independent witnesses whose lives intersect the claim in specific ways. If someone tells you they dropped 16 miles of line into a hole, your first impulse should be to quietly estimate the weight, cost, and practicality of handling that much line, not to imagine a portal. If someone says the military seized land with no trace, ask how land records work and how neighbors react when roads are suddenly blocked. This attitude is not cold cynicism, it is adult responsibility. You do not have infinite attention. You do not have infinite trust. If you treat your focus like the fuel tank of a spacecraft, you quickly see that chasing every wild tale leaves you stranded when it actually matters. Investigating a potential job offer, reading real medical advice, understanding a major election, learning a new skill for your family's future, these things all require time and cognitive energy. Hand too much of that energy to anonymous voices spinning bottomless pits, and you will not have enough left for the work that actually shows up in your bank account, on your medical charts, and around your dinner table. For a simple test, give yourself 7 days of stricter standards. Each time you hear or see a dramatic claim, pause and jot down who said it, what evidence they offered, and what it would take to prove it wrong. By the end of the week, compare those notes with how often the story actually affected your real life in practice. This brings us to the uncomfortable part. People you know and love may be hooked on these kinds of stories. You probably have that cousin, coworker, or old classmate who sends links at all hours. Secret tunnels under malls, hidden messages and logos, miracle devices the authorities supposedly fear. Every time your phone buzzes with their name, you already know the flavor of what waits on the other end. You care about them, but the conversations leave you drained and no wiser. Picture one of those meetings in detail. You sit across from them at a cafe, steam curdling from 2 cups on the table. They lean forward, eyes bright, and begin laying out a complex web. This podcast said this. That screenshot proves that. This whistleblower knew too much. There are very few dates, no primary documents, almost no names that can be checked. When you gently ask, how do we know any of this is real? The mood dips. They accuse you of being naive, brainwashed, closed-minded. You walk home carrying a mix of guilt and irritation, knowing you did not get a single solid fact out of the entire exchange. It is in exactly those moments that a traditional, almost old-fashioned virtue becomes vital. The courage to draw boundaries and stick to them. You are not obligated to sacrifice finite mental stability on the altar of someone else's obsession. You can decide quietly and firmly that you will no longer spend long calls entertaining claims that have no path to verification. You can shorten the conversation, change the subject, or say directly, "I care about you, but I am not the right person for this topic." That is not cruelty. That is stewardship of your own mind. At the same time, you can deliberately feed your curiosity with things that are both astonishing and real. Instead of another bottomless pit call-in saga, you can read mission reports about probes that landed on comets or descended through the atmosphere of distant moons. You can look at high-resolution images of Mars captured over years, watching dust devils swirl and ice caps shift. You can study how engineers actually handle power, fuel, and risk on real missions, where every wrong assumption has consequences measured in lives and billions of dollars. The wonder is still there, but it is anchored to something that does not evaporate when you ask hard questions. Once you start following that path, the legend of Mel's Hole and stories like it fall into their proper place. Entertaining folklore, nothing more. You can smile at the creativity of a narrative that escalates from trash pit to time portal to magic seal without ever offering testable evidence. You can appreciate the mood of late-night radio, the way a calm voice spinning a yarn can make the world outside your window feel thinner for a moment. And then you can turn the radio off, close the tab, and return to a life built on things you can actually touch, measure, and verify. In a culture that constantly rewards the wildest story with the most clicks, choosing this path of grounded wonder is a quiet act of rebellion. It is also a return to a more traditional standard. The idea that adults are responsible for what they believe, that passing on unverified claims is a kind of pollution, and that respect for reality is not optional. When you hold that line, you may lose a bit of the thrill that comes from imagining secret pits under every hill. What you gain is a steadier mind, a clearer sense of what truly deserves your fear, and a deeper appreciation for the real universe, which is already strange enough without invented holes to nowhere.